All right, gentlemen, it is officially now on the West Coast Friday afternoon. I know Randy's got to get out of here. He says he's got a meeting. I think it might include a beverage. I don't know. I'm in a t-shirt. I got my Mandalorian themed reminder for everybody. It is the way. Keep your mask on, folks. Really excited to have Randy and Eric here. This is the first time I think we've done one of these unpredictable pipeline interviews where we've had two guests on to talk about this, and then two guests that know each other, which could be dangerous, unscripted, scary, but
it'll be fine.
No, it'll be fine. So
I will
Randy,
make comments about Randy's shirt, so we can keep it moving forward.
And basically what's going to happen is we're going to talk for 8 or 10 minutes. Then Randy's going to turn around and play us a little musical number while we all just kind of relax for the afternoon. It's going to be good. So Randy, you are the Chief Strategy Officer, I believe, now at Seismic, and Seismic acquired your last company, Percolate. And I want to talk about the combination of those two companies and what's that's meant this year. Eric, you're just a savant. I think you've had your own business. You've been Chief Strategy Officer at Yesler. Yesler's grown like a rocket ship, was just recently acquired, and now you're interim CMO over at Domo. And maybe Randy, let's just start with you. I think in an interesting year, you've gone from growing a business to selling a business to driving strategy for a company with an integrated set of businesses in the midst of a pandemic. Smooth sailing, right?
Well, I think it is a story of two worlds, and so grateful for the fact that Seismic is one of those companies that's benefiting from a distributed model, especially for B2B. And so this is one of the things we'll talk about with Eric in particular. But Seismic is a sales enablement solution. It gets content into sellers' hands, the assumption being content is at the heart of the customer experience. So if you have great content, the sellers know what to use, when to use. It helps them in their engagement. And now that all outside sellers are inside sellers, they're having to rely on content very differently than before. I've been a field sales guy, running around taking clients out to dinner. Just doesn't happen anymore. We don't do field events, and I think Eric will talk a little bit about what's changed for marketing because of that entire shift from cross-channel, including live and offline to all digital. But yeah, no, so Seismic has benefited from it, and Seismic bought a company where I was CEO and Eric had helped participate in. It was called Percolate, which is a marketing orchestration platform, which is meant to help large organizations primarily orchestrate their campaigns and strategy and content across channels. And Eric actually is a customer of both Percolate and Seismic, and so he's seen this benefit of where you bring the marketing team closer to the sales team, because I think we've all lived the world where marketing says, I'm creating this great content, and sales says, it's not good content, I never use it, and I need more of good stuff. And the marketers are saying, wait, what do you mean? Why are you not using it? And so when you can bring those two teams together in one integrated system, you start to see which content is working. And then with Domo in particular, you're able to actually show what's working through the analytics. So yeah, it's a great partnership, and it's been a lot of fun working with Eric again. We've known each other for 10, 12 years. And it's more about who you do business with than the business that you do. And so it's been a lot of fun.
Amen to that. I think, you guys have been a dynamic duo for a while. I know you worked together at Percolate, worked together at Rocket Fuel back in the day as well. And yeah, this is an interesting time to be selling. I don't think many people are going to start going to shows and doing the road show anytime soon. So the tools that everybody now needs to be more efficient from selling from home, I think, are even more important. And, when you're distracted by kids doing remote school and whatever else, having your content tightly organized and having the systems in place to make sure you're getting the right thing at the right time to be efficient and effective, really important. Eric, you stepped into a new role at Domo right in the midst of all of this. You're still sort of, you've got a lot of stuff I know that you've got in the fire you're working on. What's it been like stepping into a CMO role at a large growing company in the midst of all this headwind?
Yeah, it's been, just like with what Randy was talking about, a lot of what Domo does really kind of comes to life in kind of these crazy times we're living in, where you need, rapid information and clarity across your business, and you have to be able to trust that information. I think if 2020 has taught us anything, is that reliable and accurate information that can be accessed by a lot of people is a good thing. And so, we've been having we've had a number of great quarters, and we've all had to adjust with Zoom fatigue and being from home and all that stuff. I mean, honestly, it's not that bad. Occasionally my internet might go out and a kid comes in, but we all have this like shared work from home experiment. And I think it's been kind of cool. Like, it's better than talking about the weather all day. We just talk about how's your, working from home experience. I think though, something that from our point of view with Seismic that I have found very interesting is that you keep hearing about Zoom fatigue and especially marketers like, how are we going to have a meeting or a virtual meeting and all this other stuff. And I find it interesting that we don't have content fatigue. Like, it's not like we're no longer watching Amazon Prime or Netflix. Like, we are binge watching more than ever before. So content still wants to be like devoured and consumed, if not now more than ever. And I find it really interesting from a sales perspective. Like, how do we adjust to meet the audience where they're at? Meaning, we can't, as typical enterprise sellers, hop on a phone, like, hey, let's do a Zoom call. Sorry, I can't make it out there. Maybe I'll get you like a Starbucks coupon or something. We do all these Zoom calls. And I think as marketers and for salespeople, we have to think about, no, how do we make great content experiences? How do we become more like Netflix and less like another Zoom meeting? And so that's the challenge we've been going through.
What are you guys seeing, Randy, in terms of some of those content trends right now? I mean, I agree, Eric, that in general, it seems like people are looking at least as much content and engaging at least as much, if not more. But are we seeing shorter form content working better? Are we seeing some formats working, some channels working better than others? What are you guys seeing?
So what we've seen more broadly across, we have about 600 customers around the world that are using the Seismic system, is two things are happening. One is people are more in the system. They're using it to create content in ways they hadn't before. And then what you're finding sellers are doing is we have this feature, it's called a live doc. They're sending out docs. So they're taking the content that's been designed for them, it's been personalized for them and their opportunity. And based upon the buyer they're engaging with, it's been personalized and sent out. And you're seeing people, sellers, actually look at the reports that show what buyers are doing with that content. And so they're able to follow up on if the buyer was on the first section of the PowerPoint or was on the last section of the PowerPoint, spent time there. You can use that intelligence to inform what's the next thing you want to show. With sellers, you want them to know what to do, know what to show, know what to say, what to do next. And I think that content now is it helps inform a conversation. Before, it was kind of brochureware. You send it out after the meeting, and like, oh, hey, here's my slick glossy. But now you have this interactive experience. I think of it some ways like what happened in advertising. We went from static display ads to sort of interactive to rich media to video. And what you're seeing in marketing, I think, is the move from static PDFs, static PowerPoints into interactive experience. So to Eric's point, the content needs to be both engaging in and of itself, thought-provoking, and it has to be a great experience because everyone's creating good thought leadership. Like, don't get me wrong, like people are staying home, they're writing good stuff. That's what we're finding. Buyers are saying, oh my gosh, I have all this good thought leadership. So the way to break free is through personalization, experience, and insights. And so when you have a system like Domo, and what Eric's been able to do with his team in terms of thinking about what are the right metrics, how to use them to inform content production, it turns it into almost real-time adaptation and signal, not noise, signal back to the marketing team to create cool new stuff that can go to the sellers. So I do think it's a combination of way of thinking about content, how you design content, how you measure content's impact, and how you close the loop on the production.
Well, I think that speed, the speed of content response, the speed of knowing what works is even more important now. We went from being able to, maybe evaluate our strategies on a monthly basis now to doing it like in some cases daily, weekly to make sure we're, staying ahead. And especially when you've got everyone pivoting to digital, like everyone, like certain channels are shut down. So now everyone's trying to get creative in these digital channels, but the digital channels are absolutely clogged. Now you could argue, okay, people aren't flying, they're not driving back and forth to work as much. Maybe they have more time, but I don't think that's keeping people from having fatigue of Eric seeing the same old thing. I think that's why new formats, creative approaches are really important.
I would say, yeah, as you said, Randy and I have known each other for a long time. I'm going to pull out a weird theory here. So we talk about signal, and we talk about traffic and clog. There's this Dutch guy, I think he's Dutch, Hans Motorman, and he's the guy who invented traffic calming. So if you think about like traffic signal, what signals tell you to do is stop and start. So if you're driving your car, there's a signal and it tells you what you're supposed to be doing at that particular time. The traffic calming is this new idea where, or it's not that new, I mean, it's been around for a while, which is like, how do we design the roads in a way that makes you do the behavior we want you to do naturally? So it's some interesting stuff. They've added gutters to the road. So instead of the road thinking it's, you know, this big, but it's this big and it's actually this big, so you slow down. And I think as marketers, to tie this back to what we're doing, I think we put up a lot of red lights. Like, I think gated content is a red light. Like, I'm on my journey, my buyer journey, and all of a sudden, boom, like red light, gated content. So now I stop, I'm going to go away. We need to think about signal in a way that enables the buyer to progress and quit getting in their way with speed bumps and signals and whatnot. So
it does seem a little silly that, you know, your most motivated prospects, those that want the most content from you, we make them literally stop and do something artificial. You know, unless someone wants a call back right away, unless someone wants a demo or a contact me, like every other forum seems entirely seller centric, right? Like, why would we ever gate someone unless we just really wanted to know who they are? But, you know, we're well beyond the point where, and now we're at the point, Randy, where, I mean, we don't need people to fill out forms. In many cases, we know who's interacting. We're able to see a lot of that activity.
That's right.
And respond, not with the creepy, hey, I saw you were on my pricing page, but by customizing the subsequent experience with more personalized content that makes sense for that prospect.
Yeah, and I think to Eric's point, part of it I think is marketers' fault, is they wanted MQLs, and they get the way you get an MQL is get the form feed. So it wasn't solving for the buyer experience, which is never linear. And so I think one of the things that you have to be comfortable with is the opening up of simultaneous parallel engagement paths. And so it's not marketing to sales, it's marketing and sales in parallel across these channels. And I think what's cool about digital, with everyone 90% digital, you know they're going to be bouncing around between your social, your email, your website, and then the connection through the salesperson. And so how do you reduce those barriers or stoplights in Eric's language that keeps them moving on the path, on their journey? Eric and I were chatting a little bit earlier, like we've been talking about sales enablement is the category that Seismic is in, which is sales asset to sellers. But when you put marketing and sales together, we're talking about journey enablement. And so if you're taking the point of view of the driver in Eric's model or the buyer, what does it mean to really enable a buyer where it's a web touch of experiences? It's not a linear buyer journey. And we all know that. But I also think the other thing, last point is, and it's not one buyer, it's a buying committee. And so you have different people with different roles for enterprise software jumping in at different points of the RFP process, needing information, who may not have been collaborating, but are all participating in RFP evaluation or a security evaluation or an IT evaluation, and then they have to come together. And so how do you make sure that you know which people from the customer have engaged with which content will give you signal in terms of understanding, are you really a contender, or are they just kind of teasing you and suggesting that you're at the end, right? You're in the final two of the beauty pageant.
Want to wrap this up pretty quickly, guys. I know you're both busy, and I know, Randy, we want to get to the piano recital portion of this event. So if you're, you know, Eric, if you're working in an organization where your board or your CEO is constantly just looking at the almighty MQL, like, it becomes kind of hard to do what we're talking about here, right? If you're working for a CEO like Randy and he's like, screw it, we need to do the right thing for the experience. I don't care about the mid-level funnel metrics. I care about what we could buy a beer with. What's your advice, Eric, for people that don't have a CEO like Randy, like who are facing some of those cultural precedent barriers to doing this right?
Yeah, the addiction to the lead is a real thing. I mean, it is. And, you know, Randy has been a CRO, and he has been the guy who says, hey, where are the leads? Where are the leads? And, you know, what we're trying to do, and, you know, and I think everyone's like that because it's the easiest signal that sales can get. And I think it just takes a lot of, you know, we've all tried to do ABM and we've all kind of failed ABM, and then we tried to do it again. And then, you know, so I think what we talk about is marketing influence. So we look at deal deconstructions, and now we're doing SQO deconstructions. Like, what's our sales qualified opportunity? How did we create this opportunity? And what's funny is the bigger the account, our big enterprise accounts didn't come from a lead. It came from a smattering of influence points. And so we're educating sales leadership, we're educating the board, we're educating the executive staff of saying leads are fine-ish, but what we need to do is look at how do we influence. And the best way to do it is, like I said, like you could look at a deal deconstruction. For me, I like to look at the qualified opportunity, because that's where sales and marketing do come together. And we say, this is a win. It's like, great, how did that happen? And let's do more of that.
Gentlemen, I appreciate your insights. I know I could keep going for a while. It's been a fun conversation. We got a bunch of people that are over here watching. So, but Randy, Eric, thank you so much for doing this. Thanks for sharing a little bit about your insights to the unpredictable pipeline. Have a good rest of your Friday. Randy, good luck with the keyboard, and we'll see y'all later.
Right on. Take care, guys.